There are so many different kinds of chapels, and sometimes I think there's just lots of different flavors, and each one has its own unique beauty and goodness. And I love this chapel. A couple of times a year we ask students to speak of God's faithfulness in their lives. We call those testimonies, witnesses. And I love it because nothing's too big for God. Psalm 113, who is like the Lord our God, the one who sits enthroned on high, who stoops down to look on the heavens and the earth. He's big. And the next line is, he raises the poor from the dust, lifts the needy from the ash heap, seats them with princes. So no one's too small, like me, you. And so we've asked two people this morning to share. I'm going to tell you who they are. Lauren Lamparter, she's a biology and chemistry major, senior. She'll be first. And Nate Evans, who's also a senior and an econ business major. Okay. They never do it at church when people are introduced. They just don't do that. They do it here, though, which is good. Okay. But anyway, Lauren will be up first. We'll sing a song, and then Nate will be up. They've got some good things to share. I know they're a little nervous, but hey, we love them, right? We can't wait to hear what they have to say. So, Lauren, God bless you. Come up and tell us about God's goodness in your life.
Hello, Westmont. It is such a privilege, and I'm so thankful to share with you the amazing ways that I've witnessed God moving in my life, specifically in the past 4 years. I grew up in a Christian home and accepted Jesus early on. However, my faith wasn't made my own until after my mom's first victory over cancer, when I was attending Hume Lake Christian Camp. I had watched as one of the strongest people in my life, my helper and my role model, had been reduced to a woman in a bed who could only raise her arms a few inches and cried with fear as she relearned to drive months later. As the focus of my family's energy had changed, I took ownership of the things that I could directly control. For a 7th grader, this became succeeding in school, and school became a major controlling part of my identity. I transitioned soon after to a public high school that seemed very lonely and void of God. Freshman year, I made a decision with my dad to begin reading the one-year Bible together. I developed a dependence on God that became my only strength throughout the rest of the years. Sophomore year, I spent 2 weeks in Ecuador, where I had confronted the fears I had been carrying from junior high and my mom's cancer battle. Fears such as needing to prove myself through school and the fear that I would lose the people who I let fully know me. However, the few who did know me at the time say that when I came back from Ecuador, I was a 180-degree different person. I had met Jesus, and I came home with a newfound fervor for non-believers, a passionate desire to find deep and lasting friendships. And for the next few years, I prayed for those friendships, but this prayer was not answered in the way that I desired it to be until I transitioned to Westmont. What I know now, reflecting on those years, is that God never misses a chance for us to learn to more fully rely on and depend on Him. What I could not see at the time is that God was going to bring these friends that I so desired into my life at the right time to help me through as His support and deal with the difficult things lying ahead. First semester at Westmont was so great. Getting to know people, spending late nights talking, wearing way too much neon, and listening to Taylor Swift's album playing through every door and page. God provided me with strong friendships, and I'm so thankful that He directed me to Westmont. Second semester, however, in January, a friend from home was killed the same day that Westmont lost a student. This day in chapel, I was flipping through my Bible, trying to uncover some sort of hope. I stumbled across a page that I had marked Houseboats 2012. I had written this the day that my friend had died, or I had met my friend who had died. And this section of verses was 1 Peter 5, 6 through 10. It reads, Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, casting all your anxieties on him because it's he who cares for you. Resist the devil, firm in your faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being endured by your brotherhood throughout the world. And after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself restore, confirm, establish, and strengthen you in righteousness. That weekend, my mom came up to visit me to give me a reprieve from the high emotions of campus. But at the end of her weekend visit, she told me that she had been diagnosed again with another cancer. February came and her surgery was the week of Spring 4-Day. She conquered this cancer again, but never remembers my coming home to visit and help with care. About a week and a half later, on February 25th, I was about to take a general biology exam when I learned that my aunt had lost her 3-year battle with cancer. As I turned in my exam, I fled to the prayer chapel, texting friends, asking for lunch, but not explaining why I wouldn't be there. After the trend of my year, they knew something was up and knew me well enough to know where I would be. And it was not long before I was found and comforted. The people that God brought into my life were truly Jesus with skin on. And now I don't want to tell you any of this to make you feel bad for me or to promote the misconception that you need a dramatized story to share your testimony. I share with you this to discuss the goodness of God despite the horrible effects of sin that we constantly live with, and to testify to the hope that I have found in Christ Jesus. During that semester, Matthew 28:20 became my stronghold. Jesus says, "Behold, I am with you always to the end of the age." I held fast to the hope of always, that promise with all of my being. I needed the tangible reminder that God was with me through everything I had gone through. I started writing it on my wrist, but eventually bought a necklace to help my parents through that. And now I wear it almost daily to never forget the truth that Jesus is with me always. It would be a disservice to just tell you all of these things happened to me, and I turned right to Christ, and everything became fine and dandy, because that is not at all true. Life remained very messy and difficult. Psalm 23 discusses walking through the valley of the shadow of death, and I was very much in darkness. I had intense anxieties about almost everything as I watched my life spiral far beyond what I could control. Trusting God in this was a major process, but acknowledging that he was walking alongside me in the valley and understanding his constant presence and understanding of the same suffering I was going through truly made all the difference. My other years at Westmont have held their own challenges, proving to be the hardest but some of the best 4 years of my life. I learned firsthand the power of grace as I received it from professors, staff, and of course my friends. I've learned what it means to have joy, a powerful force that exists even in the midst of being entrenched in what seems impossible. I learned how important it is to take each day as it comes, learning not to dwell in the past or to fear the future. And to end, I will sum up for you each year of Westmont in a single word. I believe each word fully encapsulates what I can't tell you beyond these 3 pages I was allowed. From freshman year, always. God promises to be with us always till the very end of the age. Sophomore year, grace. Every person that you meet is in need of God's grace. Junior year, thanksgiving. The true path to joy in any situation is through thanksgiving, and there will always be something to be thankful for. And lastly, senior year, trust. To trust God's will for your life, seek to align yourself with him, and live out his will. God has proven himself over and over again in my life, and he is truly worth all of the glory. Thank you.
My hope is that this testimony is not merely a story of my life, but rather a story of the power, goodness, and faithfulness of God being made complete in my weakness and despite my sin. That being said, it might get a little uncomfortable in the next couple of minutes because that's sin for you. However, my hope is that in laying aside some of my pride, I can honor the Lord's unrelenting faithfulness and give testament to his sanctifying love. I was born in New Jersey, spent my childhood along the central coast of California in a small town called Cambria, but I was raised in Fresno. Yeah, let's go. If you know what that means or think you know what that means, great. If you don't, maybe even better. Regardless of that, and what you think of any of those places, I know that I had a pretty golden childhood. However, I would say that many of the events that shaped me happened later on. So, for the sake of brevity, the important things to know are that I was raised a pastor's kid, I was all about water polo, and that by the time, there we go. And by the time I was a mildly Pharisaic freshman in high school, I had finally started to actively pursue a relationship with God. But it wasn't until my sophomore year that a single event changed the course of my life. Like Lauren, February 25th holds a lot of significance for me. In 2010, I accidentally left my phone at home. So naturally, I didn't get the text message from my mom in which she was asking me to essentially come home without going to swim practice that day. So my friend Fletcher had to tell me after Spanish class that he was going to be taking me home with his dad. And then, on top of that, we went to Jamba Juice, so I thought, all right, this is shaping up to be a pretty good day. It wasn't. When we turned the corner to my house, I saw 14 cars parked out front that were not supposed to be there. And nothing would really prepare me for what I was going to hear upon entering the room. When I walked through the front door, the hung heads and hushed voices mildly prepared me for what was going to come out of my mom's mouth with the controlled words, "Nate, your dad's gone." "Where'd he go?" I asked, and I started grappling for the keys in her purse so that I could go and find him. I needed to. I needed to find some hope that the 18-month bout of depression hadn't taken him. I needed to find some hope to ward off the fear that was bearing down on me that he was actually gone for good. But her nod told me that it was so. And then the burn came. It scorched my chest and burned my arms, and if you've ever lost anyone like that, you know what I'm talking about. The pain left my head muddled, and I decided that I would go in and clean my room as well as I could to try and gain some control, some order. But it was in that moment I found out just how little control I actually had over my own life. So, each day thereafter, I tried to trust God with every event that I could that was out of my control. But for every event that I thought I had a grasp on, I clung to it even harder. Grades, athletic prowess, image, social status, to name a few. I wanted my identity to be somewhere no one else could touch it. Ironically, I gave everyone else's approval control over my life instead. It wasn't until my senior year that I finally began to grasp a little bit of what it meant to have my identity stored in heaven as a child of God. Something I'm still trying to understand to this day. In doing so, I started to relax, take myself a little bit less seriously, and back off on the striving a little bit. I found I didn't need to wreck myself in practice every day in order to become a better athlete, or stress so much about homework in order to get that GPA, or compromise my morals trying to gain acceptance from other people, all of which, in the end, only led to further disappointment in myself. When I started to realize this and acted on it, I found people actually enjoyed being around me for once, and rather than the angrier version of myself that had been present for the past 5 months. It was a nice change, having good friends that reminded me I was lovable, and that I was already loved by a very loving God. But he had a plan up his sleeve that would forever change the way I saw this love and provision in my life when I finally decided to trust him with the trajectory of it, rather than just keeping him involved in it. It was May 1st, and it was the last day to decide whether or not I was going to go to Westmont. And it also happened to be the last day that I found out that I wasn't getting that $10,000 Cal grant that was supposed to make it possible. Sick. So, for the first time since my dad's death, I skipped swim practice and just decided that I would go home and try and figure this out. So I pulled up the 4 sites of the Christian colleges that I had as options to go to college, but Westmont was the clear pick, and I knew that I wanted to go there. So, sat on my bed and I prayed, and I decided in front of God that I was going to go to Westmont, even if I had to borrow more than $17,000 a year to do so. How long I actually would have stuck with that, who knows, but fortunately I didn't need to find out, because about 2 milliseconds after I said amen, the phone rang. Now, on the other end of the phone was someone telling me that they had $10,000 for me to come to Westmont. All right, God, I see you. I'm so sorry for not trusting you that boldly beforehand. He had just provided the same way he had provided for the Israelites in the desert. Yet, just like the Israelites in the desert, it wasn't long before I let the extent of God's faithfulness stray from the forefront of my mind. While God was teaching me to trust in him, I nonetheless have managed to scald myself in the pursuit of continued control in my life. And if you know me, you know I still like that control. While at Westmont, I found out the hard way that I can't control myself, let alone another person, in a dating relationship. Even my best efforts to keep the relationship's direction only led to more severe burns both before and after it ended. And only when I had been thoroughly humbled did God take me in my broken state to a place where he would once again remind me my identity was in the love he had for me, not the love anyone else had for me. That place was Yosemite Sierra Summer Camp in Bass Lake, California. There we go. There, he not only allowed me the space to seek him, but also the chance to forfeit another idol. In the first month of the summer going to my junior year, which was supposed to be like the epitome of running for me, I ended up tearing my labrum in my hip while running uphill and disobeying the doctor's orders. And then on top of that, while trying to compensate for the lack of ability of running, I tore a muscle in my left abdominal while doing too many pull-ups. So within a week, I had managed to completely incapacitate myself. It was awesome. It sucked, actually. I lost the chance to physically exert myself, which was like the only thing I thought keeping me sane most of the time. I had lost the ability to find pride in my physique and athletic talent. And on top of that, I lost the ability to literally run away from all of my problems. So who would have thought it was just what I needed? Though I let it cause me a fair amount of angst in the moment, it gave me every morning that I normally would have been running to read God's word in the words of others who have spent far more time studying the scriptures. And it changed me. I not only began to look at myself beyond whether or not the right muscle groups were there, I began to look at myself truly as someone loved by God. And then all of a sudden, campers and staff members I wasn't the biggest fans of before started to become lovely to me. Not because they'd gotten any better in my eyes, but because they were children of God too, deserving of love. And it impacted how I treated them. All of a sudden, people were not anyone that I had to prove myself to, but people through which I could show God's love, and hopefully bring his kingdom here on earth a little bit more than I had been doing beforehand. Exactly 6 months after I left camp, I wound up on the operating table down here in Santa Barbara to get my hip repaired, and it was okay. I didn't need to be an athlete anymore. My body was a gift, and I wanted to take care of it as best as I could from there on out. While my tendency will be to fall back into my self-control habits, as many of you know, I trust God will continue the process of sanctifying me through and through and remind me he is worthy of all my trust. Life's easier when living that way. We serve a gracious and a kind God, my dad used to say. He has taken the punishment we deserve but can't handle and has promised to engulf our suffering with his love. How true those words are, Dad. I want God in control of my life, but regardless of what I want, he already is, and that's a very good thing.